From Anchored in Faith Gospel Church in Oxford, Iowa, this is Anchored in Faith.
Our society and our government is trying to get the church to rewrite the Bible.
That's right.
That's what they want. They want us to change our doctrine. And if your doctrine is built on the Scripture, then you can't change that and be true to God. Now, there's people doing it. There's people that are going along, like they say, go along to get along. And so we're getting to the place where, it's going to be God or failure. It's going to be God or the government. It's going to be God or popularity. It's going to be God or close my church. Because we're in a time of, like Elijah, spiritual warfare. It's where Christians are going to have to stand against the establishment. And that's what's happening. We are establishing something else in this country other than what we've had for the past 300 years. And so we'll start with that. We'll go to 1 Kings. Want to follow along? 1 Kings 18, chapter 18, verse 17 and 18. And, of course, you know the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal. But before that, he's actually in front of Ahab. Ahab's the king who married Jezebel, whose father was the king of Sidon, which was a pagan city. They worshiped Baal, they worshiped Ashtoreth, they worshiped all these false gods. And here's what happened. And again, this is a message for people who want to marry somebody that's not a Christian. It's not a good idea. Okay, so verse 17, it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? So he's accusing Elijah of being a troublemaker. And Elijah says, he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and hast followed Balaam. In other words, the gods of Baal. Because his wife Jezebel had established the worship of Baal and Ashtoreth as the religion or the worship of Israel. Now remember, Israel's the northern kingdom. So if you go to verse 16, chapter 16, verse 31 to 33, it says, It came to pass, as if it had been a light thing, that he, Ahab, took to wife Jezebel, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. And Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel that were before him. So he married this woman, and of course, that she brought her gods with her. See, in the Old Testament, in Bible times, in the Middle East and the ancient world, the nations were identified with their gods. In other words, Egypt had a set of gods, and the Canaanites had a set of gods, the Romans, the Greeks. And if you were an Egyptian, you were identified with a certain set of gods. So if you married somebody from another nation, you brought your gods with you. That was kind of understood. I'm marrying this Egyptian woman, and I'm a Roman or I'm a Greek, and she's going to bring her gods with her, and that's okay, because we're all worshiping, our own gods. But back then, you were identified with the gods of your nation, even if you weren't really worshiping. I mean, you still were, that was understood. So she brought her gods with her and set them up as the religion. Ahab knew the law. Ahab, even though the kingdom was divided and the temple was in the south, he still knew about the worship. He still knew about the one true God, the law of Moses, what he was supposed to be doing as the leader. But he let her replace all this with her worship. And now he's saying to Elijah, who's the conscience, his conscience is, he said, well, you're rocking the boat. You're troubling us. That's where we're at today. See, the Christians are troubling the establishment, what's going on. The true Christians that are standing for God are troubling. And so we have this situation now where people in power are saying, well, you can have your church, but don't bring it out of the building. You can go worship, you can go dance around and praise and whatever you do, but don't go out in the public and witness. Don't go out and protest anything like abortion or same-sex marriage or any of this other stuff. Just keep your stuff in your building and don't trouble us. And Elijah says, well, you're the one that's troubling. You're the one that's replaced. Let this woman come in and replace the God of Israel with her gods. And so that's what sets up this whole showdown between Elijah and the false prophets. And of course, you know the story. They try to get their gods to show up and do something. They never show up. Elijah says, pour the water on the sacrifice 3 times, and God takes it all. The fire from heaven comes down, takes the sacrifice, the water, and he kills all the prophets. So you would think that that would be enough to get the people back to worshiping God. But you know what? The Israelites are so stiff-necked. If you look at Israel going all the way back to Egypt, and when Moses let them out, and all the miracles in the conquest of the land, crossing the Red Sea, manna from heaven, save them from Pharaoh's army, Israel had enough miracles in its history that they should never have gotten away from God, but they did, because miracles and signs and wonders don't bring people to faith. I hate to say that. We love them. I love to see people healed. I love to see people delivered. But that's just a confirmation that God's here. Doing a wonder or a sign, look what Jesus did. Jesus did many, many miracles. Healed many people, did many signs and wonders. And what did the Jews say to him? Well, one more. Do another one and we'll believe. See, do one more and, we'll believe. You just do one more, healing or one more miracle, and they never did. It was always one more. That's the way they are. That's the way they were. The Jews wanted a sign, and the Greeks, which is the Gentiles, wanted this proof, this intellectual. The Greeks were big debaters and philosophers and stuff, and they wanted God proven. They wanted him to prove him, put him in a bottle or in a box. That's 2 kinds of people you have that you deal with. You're trying to witness to somebody. What do they say to you? Oh, well, if God would just fill in the blank, if God would just heal my sickness, or if he would just get me out of debt, or if he would just do this or do that, then I'll believe. Well, of course, God will do it. But then, and how do they come to Jesus? Well, a lot of times they don't. We've had them here. They come in here, they get delivered, they get healed, they get money, they get whatever they need, and then you can't find them with radar. They're out the door. Pastor John dealt with them. Linda's dealt with them. Everybody that's in this church, Ray's dealt with them, and then they're gone. Either that or they want some mathematical, scientific proof, that God, where's God? You prove him to me. Well, God's bigger than my little proof. I couldn't prove God. My mind's too small for that. And God is not us anyway. He's other than what we are. So we can't do that. You can't do that because God is outside of all. He's bigger than all that, philosophy and everything else. So you have two kinds of people that you deal with. They either act like the Jews or they act like the Greeks. And that is why, people don't come. They have these big services and miracles and stuff. People don't come to Christ over that. They come to Christ because they get convicted. Like Pastor John used to say, they realize that they're undone. Like Peter. He preaches to the Jews in the book of Acts, and they say, what must we do to be saved? We're lost. We realize we're lost. What do we have to do to get saved? And he tells them. And so that's what brings people to Christ is conviction that they're lost, that they're sinners, that they've fallen short of God. And so signs and wonders are great. I love them. I love to see people get healed and baptized in the Spirit and, miracles and all that. We need more of that. But that doesn't bring them. They're just a sign that God is in your meeting or your church. Just like the sign on the road. It says Hy-Vee or whatever, The sign's not Hy-Vee. It points you to Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee's where the real stuff is. That's just a sign, a symbol. And that's what signs and wonders are from the church, to confirm that God is there. So, Elijah is confronting Ahab, just like we're going to have to do. We're losing our little support net. If you think the First Amendment is going to protect your speech, you have some problems, because more and more what you can say is being limited. Not just about God and Jesus and all that, but anything. You can't have an opinion about anything unless it passes the test of what? Political correctness. That's where we're at. If it offends anybody in any way, then you're in trouble. You just can't say anything that might offend. And of course, what's the gospel? What did Paul say? It's an offense. You tell people they're sinners, that's offensive. It was to me. If it wasn't to you, then, well, I don't know. But it's offensive for somebody to say you're lost, that there's a judgment coming, that you're going to stand before God and answer for what, your life has been. That's offensive. Oh. But other people can get away with it. The Muslims, and I always talk about the Muslims, because a lot of what they believe comes from the Old Testament. People don't realize that. They execute gays in the Middle East every day in these countries. And you know what? Nobody does a thing about it. I don't see anybody bombing them. I don't see anybody shutting down mosques. I don't see any protesters. They abuse women and accuse the Christians of being mean to women. They're, ladies, hello? You want to wear clothing from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet? I don't think so. You want to veil your face? You want to have your husband tell you exactly what you can do and can't do? I mean, if that's what you like, then you better get in line and join up, because that's what's happening. I'll say this again, because it's going out. Under Islamic law, every woman and girl must be in submission to some man, either her father, her husband, some other male relative, like, an uncle, a grandfather, something. Not her boyfriend, not the person she's dating. You don't date under Islamic law. You are married to whoever your daddy tells you you're going to be married to. That's the way it works. So if you like that, then that's for you. But whatever happened to women's lib? Guys, whatever happened to all this stuff that women fought for years? You don't vote in Islamic countries. Did you know that? Ladies, if they have some kind of election, you don't vote. You don't. You don't go out of the house unless your husband tells you you can't. You don't drive a car. You don't go to the doctor on your own. That's right. So, and if they don't like what you're doing, you'll get killed. He can have you killed or kill you himself, and nobody's going to lift a finger. That's Islamic law, and that's what is trying to be accepted in this country. Now, we're supposed to have one law, and that's the Constitution. And all our laws are supposed to be based on that. So that is what we used to be about. And you can debate about whether America was a Christian country or not, and the founders, but one thing you can't deny is that America was founded and settled by religious people, people of faith. The Puritans, the Pilgrims, the Quakers, even the Roman Catholics came here from England because they were being persecuted. All these groups came over here for religious freedom, so they could worship like they want, and that's a fact, and you can't rewrite that out of the history books. Now, I may not agree with their doctrine and all that stuff. That's not the point. They came here for freedom, and they're not getting it. We're not getting it. We're getting pushed in the corner and marginalized, and we're the ones that are the troublemakers. We're like Elijah. We're troubling the establishment. Now, some people aren't. Some people are getting in line. Baylor University, just read it yesterday. Big Baptist school, Big Baptist University, now is saying they will not discipline students for homosexual behavior because that's not kind. They want to have a more kind, atmosphere. Big ministries rolling over. Joel Osteen, already talked about him. Oh, I'm not going to preach against stuff like that. My job's to make people feel good. That's right. World Vision International, big Christian charity, been around for, I don't know how long, 50 years. Oh, well, we're going to accept gay marriage. It's the thing. Tony Campolo, big Christian author, well known. Yep, I'm going to let him in. I'm going to do marriages and all this stuff. So, they're falling in line. And I have to say that most of the protests against all this come from the Catholic Church. You know that? If they're the opposition to all of this, mostly, just like abortion, comes from the Catholic Church. And that's a shame on us. We are more and more going to have to be like Elijah. Now, did Elijah get discouraged?
Oh, yes. Yes, he did.
Well, yeah. After the big miracle, he's running away. Jezebel says, I'm going to get you. But she's bluffing. Because if she really wanted to get him, she'd just send her troops out and find him. But he got scared. Now, we get scared.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
There's big bad, there's a lot of power that's against us. All these little things that get decided without an election, like gay marriage. I didn't vote on that. Did you? I had it for several years. I didn't vote on it then. Some judges passed it. All these things where they go around the people voting, they can be enforced by some bureaucrat with a gun. He can come, knock on your door, and take you away. That's the biggest problem, is that we have all these unelected people passing all these regulations, and they're all enforceable by whoever enforces the law. That's the part that we need to be concerned about, because, there's so many ways that you can get in trouble. And if you resist, they have the authority to haul you away. They're putting parents in jail for letting their kids play in the park or walk to school and back unattended. That's considered child endangerment. There's people going to jail for that, having their kids taken away. Oh, you don't want your kids taken away by DHS. Child protection, forget it. It's not protection. It's harassment. You're scratching your head saying, okay, what did I do wrong? And they don't want you to know what you did wrong. They want to be able to walk through your house and find something. That's why you shouldn't let them in without a warrant. You want to come in my house, you better have a warrant and tell me what you're looking for. Because otherwise they'll find something. Oh, gee, you got this? They'll ask you questions, do you own any guns? Better not tell them yes or no to that one. Do you ever had a psychiatric treatment? Ever fight with your wife? Ever, get loud? That's all you need, man. We're just seeing what Elijah saw. And he had to do it. What he had to do, he stood up to the king. Wife says, I'm going to get you. And he runs. And he got discouraged. We get discouraged. You don't want to watch the news too much. You'll get discouraged pretty quickly. I think it was Smith Wigglesworth back years ago would not allow a newspaper in his house. He told his followers, don't read the newspapers, don't listen to stuff like that, because it's all designed by the devil to make you, defeat you. And the more I think about that, he probably was right. You watch too much news and whatever's going on, you'll lose your victory. So, what happens to Elijah? He's boo-hooing in the cave. You ever boo-hooed in the cave? Come on now. You know you have. You've got discouraged. Don't say you haven't. You ain't no different than me. I get discouraged. Linda gets discouraged. Hannah gets discouraged. The devil loves discouragement. That's his tool. So God has to go to him and say, what does he say? I got 7,000 that haven't bowed the knee. Now he's got that many in America, probably more than that, that love God and are still have not bowed the knee, are not going to bow the knee. And that's where we need to be. A lot of these pastors are saying, and I said this to Linda, I said, if you do weddings, you're going to get tested. But a lot of these pastors are saying that they're not going to do it. And if they go to jail, they will go to jail. They will not obey any order to perform a same-sex marriage. Amen. So I hope they stick to that. But there's a big national movement. They're talking to each other, and that's the way they should, that we're not going to do this. And if you want to put the cuffs on, just like down in Houston, when the woman mayor who's a lesbian. They're trying to pass one of these laws, the bathroom law, where anybody can use whatever bathroom they want to use. Well, of course, there was a lot of opposition to that and didn't get voted on, didn't get put on the ballot. They were just going to run it through, wave their hand, see, and make it happen. Well, there was opposition. Oh, people are opposing me. Well, who are these people? Well, the Christians, the religious people. So she wanted the pastors of Houston, Texas, every pastor in every church to turn over sermons, material, videos, tapes, anything that opposed this kind of a law or the gay agenda, whatever you want to call it. And the pastor said, you come and get it. Like the Greeks and the Persians, they said, Molan Labe, come and take them. The Persians said, give us, lay down your arms, surrender to Persia. The Spartans said, come and take them. So that's what they did. And she backed up because there wasn't enough cops in Houston to arrest every pastor and his congregation. And I guess not. So that's the kind of thing that's going on. Now, I hope that's the start of something big, because we're going to need it, or we're going to be another third world banana republic, probably under Islamic law in 5 years. And I ain't living under Islamic law, and I don't think you want to either. Ladies, especially you, I mean, you ought to be out in front of all this, because the women are the ones getting abused in the Middle East. They're getting kidnapped, they're getting forced into marriage, they're getting raped, they're getting killed, they're getting all sorts of things. And I don't hear a peep from Jane Fonda or Gloria Steinem or any of these other big-time feminists that, were so radical years ago. They're not saying a word. So that's where we're at. We're Elijah. We're standing in front of Ahab, who has replaced our traditional way of doing things in this country, which was freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion. It says, you read the Constitution, the government shall make no law prohibiting freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, establishing a church, or preventing the worship. That's what it says. And we've done all of that. Right now, we're moving towards some kind of state thing, and you don't like it, then you're going to go sit in the jailhouse. Well, they're going to find there's more people than they got cops.
Full sermons are available anytime at www.anchoredinfaith.org. Contact us by calling 319-828-4815 or write us at Anchored in Faith, P.O. Box 204, Oxford, Iowa 52322, or email us at tv@anchoredinfaith.org. This has been a copyrighted presentation of Anchored in Faith Gospel Church, Oxford, Iowa.